Okay, so what's the best grade for SAT, ACT? I would say eighth grade, and the reason is because the problem with the SAT, ACT is not so much the content knowledge that people need to get. That's not the issue, because anybody can take those exams on a good day, and if they have the right math skills and reading skills, they'll be okay. The problem is practice. There's a type of practice you need, which takes time. Well, what's very common in America is by the time you get to the age of 16, 17, 18, you have a job, you have other things that take your time. Sometimes you have relationships you shouldn't be in, that takes your time too. So by the time you take all that into account, guess what? You can't practice the number of hours you need to excel on the SAT, ACT. So who has time and who has knowledge? So this is kind of an engineering idea, this idea of constraints. You have time and you have the relevant knowledge. Eighth, ninth grade is the sweet spot, I would say. Just a little bit touch up on math skills and you'll be okay. So that's how I look at it. Eighth and ninth grade is the golden opportunity to secure a lot of practice for the SAT and ACT so that by 10th grade, your focus is actually on the colleges you want to go to, and you could just carry those results and pass it on to those colleges.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, so that's my thought for the SAT, ACT. For our kids, we're probably going to let them do dual enrollment also. So meaning that while they're still in high school, they're going to be getting college credit for certain courses. And then when they're ready for college, they'll only have like 2 years or 2.5, 3 years at the most left.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the questions the students are going to ask, so maybe you can actually, if you answer it for me, I'll just pass this recording to them. But one of the questions is this topic of if somebody wants to be a robotics engineer, if somebody wants to be a robotics engineer, then what would be the best approach? Should they do mechanical engineering first, or should they do robotics right from the get-go? So I'll let you answer that. I have one of my friends on
Sure.
the call too, but go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of that, when you say which one should they do first, you mean as a major in college?
Yes, as an undergrad major in college.
Okay. So again, that will depend on your school. So in the last several years, there has been an increase in the number of robotics programs that have accreditation. That's a
Okay.
weird word, but where they actually have. So, for example, Carnegie Mellon is one of the best ones in the country, where they have a robotics program, so a dedicated program where you are learning all these aspects of robotics, and it's interdisciplinary, which is what you need when you're doing robotics. You can't just know about the hardware, you need to know about software, you need to know about sensors, you need to know about all of these different ways, systems design. And so a program like that would give you a sense of how to how you would be able to proceed. So that would give you that interdisciplinary thing. In many colleges you go to, they're not going to have specifically a major called robotics. And in that case, you're going to be better off going into electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, one of the major disciplines. And so if you're thinking just long term about being marketable, sometimes that might be easier to have a mechanical engineering degree, so that even if you decided, hey, I don't necessarily want to do robotics forever, that degree is one that transfers to everything, and it's established. The curriculum is established. You know basically the things that you're going to learn. But I wouldn't, uh, although I do, robotics is something different where you can't necessarily just learn one thing, and it's changing all the time. So I would say it's much easier for you to go into maybe a mechanical or an electrical engineering field, and then make sure you're focusing on robotics projects the entire time, and building things the entire time, and building a portfolio the entire time. And if you do that, you'll be fine. But unless you're at a Carnegie, and then there are also one other thing is that there are schools that might have something called a robotics major. It may not be a great it may not be recognized by people. So if you go to some community college and you get your robotics degree, are people going to recognize that? Probably not. I would say in general, you shouldn't care about that anyway. You should be building projects so that you
Yep.
can show people. And when you have cool robotics projects that are doing interesting and useful things, and you can show people that, that's what they want to see. And then if they see that, it doesn't matter that you have a degree from a community college, because you've been able to show your work. So that's what I would have done earlier. I would have been recording everything and documenting everything that I was doing, even class projects. Like I had a class project where I was flying a UAV, a little small coaxial helicopter above a radio controlled car, and the radio controlled car would follow it around. So you could actually fly the helicopter and the car would drive underneath the helicopter wherever it was in the room. And
Wow.
so that was a cool project, but I didn't really document it very much. And I don't remember, I don't know why I didn't, but it would have been a cool to have all the videos and all of that, all the code,
Yep.
but I didn't do that. And that was just some project that I thought was cool to do in one of my, I don't even think it wasn't even considered a robotics class. I don't remember what it was even about, but
Yep.
if you keep all of that stuff and show people I did this, and that's what people are going to say, oh, okay, well, Amos's friend, David or Joseph, they are, they have all of this portfolio here. And
Yeah.
that's what you want to be focusing on, because in the future, I think increasingly college degrees are going to be less. I mean, that's not what your SAT, ACT people want to hear, but college degrees are not going to mean the same as they maybe once did. And so I think you'll be looking at college as a way to build your portfolio rather than I need this piece of paper, because
Yep.
increasingly companies don't care about the piece of paper. So, but the college isn't going to tell you that. So I'm
Yeah.
telling you, make sure you are documenting right now, like stuff you're doing in high school, cool robotic stuff that you're doing in high school, document it and write and get that code and put it somewhere, get you a GitHub, and don't just have all of these cool projects that you did. Maybe you document it on YouTube or something, but
Yeah.
have documentation of the work that you've done. And then when the time comes, you can show somebody that's interested in you, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. And that you show your skill rather than saying I have a piece of paper that supposedly means I have some skill, but it doesn't. Well, I think companies are finding that that doesn't mean anything. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say for
Yeah.
robotics.
So I'll go back to one of the things you said about computer science. I know David loves computer and electrical engineering. That's my favorite field in my head, is that if I had to choose a major, computer and electrical engineering, and maybe mechanical is a stretch for me because I'm too abstract with numbers. I just don't know that I can build stuff, right? I
Okay.
like the computer and electrical side. But what I was gonna say is I do have a project. I'm gonna plant a seed. So maybe somebody will run with this. I want a wagon that is mechanically driven and censored to me so that when I walk around, I want it to follow me with all my 40 books I walk around with. So I don't know if there's a way to build a mechanical engineering sort of this. Think about a wagon that people pull in the store, But imagine if
Mhm.
I had like in my keychain, it has a sensor that is connected to the wagon, and then when I go to class, it's just walking behind me. I don't know what engineering goes into that, but that's a project
Mhm.
somebody could do and maybe get themselves into MIT. Um, but when engineers think about projects like that, what I just discussed, where does the computer and electrical people, where do they come in, and what kind of code are we talking about? And what kind of codes can people start learning now if they want to build these kind of things I just mentioned?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So like when you're so I was not a computer science major, but I did take some computer science courses. And this is, I would give the same advice that I'm giving the robotics person, which is document everything and document these code projects that you're building. And because if you just say, hey, I have a computer science degree, now hire me, versus you have a portfolio of projects that you have done where you've written software for whatever the project is, then you can show them that portfolio. And so for the computer science person, what they would need to do, where their role in that project comes, is in first designing the algorithm. Because what we've got to think of, so I'm thinking about your problem here. So you
Yep,
want a wagon that is going to follow you around.
yep,
So again, the mechanical person is thinking about the wheels and the motors and the wagon itself. And so, and being able to control that, how are we going to drive this? Are we going to have four-wheel drive? Are we going to have two-wheel drive and then have casters, which are, they're non-motorized wheels that just allow you to move along the surface? How are we going to move? So the mechanical guy, he's going to be working on that. The electrical guy is going to figure out how to wire it all up. But what
okay,
we need from the computer science guy is two things. We first need the algorithm, like what is the algorithm of how it's going to follow you around?
yeah,
So if I have, so and then the second thing is the controller. So the algorithm is kind of the abstract part of what is the logic that needs to happen to get the wagon to do the thing you want. And then they need to convert that into code that they're going to use to actually speak to the motors and speak to the controller, to everything. So they've got to do both of those things. And so you're going to take data structure and algorithms courses, and so computer science, you're going to take that kind of thing. And so you've got to get good at being able to take that problem and break it down, and then be able to create code pieces that are going to do the things that you need it to do. So
Mm.
what does that look like to take the sensor information and then be able to output what's going to happen with the wagon, and how quickly do the wheels need to turn? How do we do speed control? How do we do directional control where Amos turns right here and the wagon needs to turn right as well, but we also don't want it to run into the corner of the wall. And so all of these kinds of things need to be thought out on the front end,
Yep.
and then the code is written for that. And so this is why with that's a robotics problem, but you can
Yep.
understand that if I, as a single person, like I can think of a couple of ways that we could design this wagon, but it takes all of that, and you have to have some sense of all of those things. But it really would be helpful to have a person that just works on the computer science, and somebody that just works on the mechanical, and somebody that just works on the electrical. And for a lot of these in engineering school, you'll generally have some kind of capstone project
Yep.
where you will put together a team, and you'll solve a problem like what you're describing.
Yep.
And so learning how to work in a team is hard. I would say for computer science guys, what happens though is they are often afraid of the hardware, and they're afraid of the circuits because they
Okay.
don't have to they so you can probably find a simulator that
Yeah.
can do all of that. So
Yep.
you could have a simulator of a wagon. So like I work with Linux, and so I'm working with a simulator called Gazebo. And
Yeah.
so if you had a simulator of a wagon, then all you would have to do is really focus on the algorithm and the code, and
Yeah.
how to get it to do the thing I want it to do. So yeah, that's what I would say for that. I would say they would need to think about the algorithm. And when I say algorithm, maybe it's not clear what I mean by algorithm, but it's just the method of doing what is the logic method that you go through. Okay, I need to take in this sensor information, and then I need to process it in some kind of way to determine what is the direction of the wheels and what is the speed that I'm going to command them. And
Yep.
just do that loop over and over again. But you have to have that algorithm in place before you can code it up. You don't just start sitting down writing code. That's not how it works. You got to
Yeah.
have a plan first.
I think one way engineers beat everybody in life is you guys are so good at project planning and just thinking of big picture. And that's honestly, I'll tell you my little secret. I bought a book called How to Think Like an Engineer. So that's just so you know, because I'm trying to learn how to build systems better. I think that even in business, and I look at a lot of the CEOs, they're engineers, right? So it seems
Yeah.
like there's something about engineering that everybody could benefit from. This idea of project design, or what do you guys call it, systems thinking.
Yeah.
So I even thought about like even the math education problem in America that I talk about often. I think we just give it to engineers; they'll fix it for us, right? Because they'll know what the end is, what the end goal is, and reverse engineer. Like, why aren't we doing? Why aren't we reaching out more? Why aren't we reaching out more to engineers? So one question I want to go back to that I think will be helpful for someone like David or me that are new to the computer space, or somebody who's new to the computer space, is that if somebody is still new and they want to start building their portfolio, right? Are there some recommendations for that beginning? What are the beginning computer science languages to make sure you're playing with, just to start getting comfortable on your own, not required by school?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, learn one language and learn it well. And then when you've learned one, you can go learn others relatively easily. And
Okay.
so I write a lot in Python. If you're interested in any kind of artificial intelligence type applications, Python's a great language to learn in, and it's more intuitive than some of the other languages. But it doesn't really matter which, I would say, but it shouldn't be some really obscure language that nobody really uses. So if it's C++, I'm not going to argue with you. All of the C languages are the cool thing about, well, not the cool thing, but C has been around a long time, and it's fast. And so a lot of things get converted to C because it just runs so fast on your hardware. And so
Yeah.
that's why C is often used. But if you go learn Python, that's just going to be a useful language for you, or Java or whatever it is. But learn one. Don't try to learn five at first. Learn one language, learn it well, know it very well, do a bunch of your projects based on that. And then once you've learned that one, if you get to a place where you have to learn another one, you can. So I initially learned let's see. I mean, I'm dating myself somewhat, but I mean, I initially learned something called Fortran 90. So it wasn't even there's an older Fortran, so I wasn't that old, but Fortran 90 is what I started with. Then when I got to engineering school, I learned C++. Then I was working in a lab and they were using C sharp. Then I was doing a lot of stuff in MATLAB. And then for my doctoral degree, all the AI stuff, I saw people were writing in Python. And so I had to go learn Python. And so each time I learn a new language, it's easier than before because I know, again, system wise how to write. There's this term called object oriented programming where you're programming objects basically and putting them together, and that system of thinking in terms of code is the main thing. So if you
Yeah.
do that, then learning another language is not it's just learning the syntax, learning what are the different commands. But learn one is what I would say. So there are a lot of these computer science programs that will, or classes that'll say, hey, we're going to teach you some Python, we're going to teach you some C++, we're going to teach you some C sharp, we're going to teach you Java, and they'll try to teach you 5 or 6 different languages and you end up knowing none of them. You
Yeah.
need to learn one right now. I would say Python. That's what I do a lot of stuff in. But you can't go wrong with C++ or Python. And I would say don't spend a lot of time agonizing over which one. Just learn one. If you need to learn another one later, which you most likely will, you'll just learn it later and it will be easier. But learn one and do everything in that one right now. And so look up little beginner projects. So start off with Hello World is like the classic. If you can get the terminal to print hello world, that's like the very first thing you learn. And it's a simple like few lines, whatever, whether it's Python, C++, everybody does that. So you start with hello world, then you start doing other things. Maybe you eventually create an app and just find things that you're interested in that you want to code up. Do that in that language. And it's just so much information, so much tutorials, so
Yeah.
many tutorials that the information's out there. But I would just tell you, focus on one language, get good at it, build things that are interesting to you in that language, and then you can worry about other languages later that you might need to learn.
So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage my students then, as part of a check-in with them later, it's okay, what language did you pick, right? So if a student tells me I want to be a computer science or computer and electrical engineering major, I'm going to tell them, pick a language. The next time I see you, tell me what language, and then I can keep you accountable to that.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot about Python. I actually started doing a little bit myself. I'm still in the beginning, but
Mhm.
someday I'll get it down. So I'll let Joseph, David, Nathaniel, the people on the call, if you guys have a question for Jerry. So if you remember, Dr. Jerry Sweeford is a robotics mechanical engineer. Actually, maybe I'll let you introduce yourself. What's your branch? And then maybe just a little bit about you as who's Dr. Jerry Sweeford.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, I'm a robotics engineer in America. I'm in the Southeast, so I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, which is where uh, back in the 60s where the space race and we were trying to fly to the moon. And so all of that, we have the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center here. And so there's just a lot of there in America, at least. Huntsville is maybe the top 2 or 3 in terms of number of engineers um, in the entire country. In terms of engineer, like you walk down the street, you'll find a rocket scientist like around here. So they're everywhere. So it's an interesting place. But my background is mechanical engineering. So my undergraduate degrees, I have a mathematics degree, and I also have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. And I have a master's degree, which was basically in manufacturing engineering, because the school I was at didn't have uh, the master of engineering. You had to have a concentration in mechanical or manufacturing. And then my PhD is in mechanical engineering, but my concentration was in robotics. So I was designing AI controllers for balance and stability in humanoid robots. So that was my background. And so now I'm working with a robotics startup here in Huntsville, Alabama, and we are working on building a humanoid robot that will be able to replace warehouse workers. And so it has a differential drive as its base, meaning two wheels that allow it to do a zero turn radius, and it can go forward, backward, turn, and move. And then the upper body has arms like a person and hands. And so we're what I'm actually currently working on. I've got the camera over here beside me, but I've got this camera that we're going to use to recognize objects. And so when we're able to recognize objects and determine how far away they are, then we would be able to move the robot to that location and then use the hands to pick up an object or manipulate it in some way. So that's what I work on. And so it's a really, I just finished graduate school back in December. And so I started working with this, my thesis advisor is the chief technical officer of this startup. So he wanted me to come on and do some work with them, and so that's what I get to do. And so yeah, so if you have any questions about robotics, mechanical engineering, or that kind of thing in general, in terms of specifically America, I can't really necessarily speak for how other countries or college systems do it, but I would assume many of them are similar experiences. I could probably kind of help you out if you're looking to come to America and go into engineering or robotics.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Now I'm gonna leave it to the young men. Anyone want to ask any questions to Dr. Jerry Sweetwater? You could just use your audio. You don't have to worry about the video.
I'm here. Oh, sorry, my name's David.
Okay, hey David.
Yeah, what made you get into computing? Like, what was your drive? Like, what made you fall in love with like computers and stuff?
So that's an interesting story. So I would go all the way back to first grade. I barely remember this, but in the so I'm 38 years old. So when I was in the first grade, we're talking about 1990, I think. I was in the first grade. No, 1991, I was in the first grade. And so when I first went into the classroom, apparently they had a computer there, and I went straight over to the computer and started like playing on it. So there's just a natural interest that I've had in computers. In the third grade, they were teaching us how to type, and the school I was at. And so from there, being able to type just allowed me to be able to do other things with computers. We didn't have computers at home, so I would have to go to school to work with computers. In terms of robotics specifically, I got to I was working on my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering at Tennessee State University, and I did well in a class. And my teacher had a lab there at the university. It was a robotics lab. And because I did well on his test, he asked me if I'd be willing to do research. And I got to start doing research with him, worked with him for a couple of years. And then when it came time for me to work on a PhD, um, I talked to my soon to be thesis advisor, and he had three robotics projects. One was about unmanned aerial vehicles. So think of if you've ever seen quad rotors or these multi rotor drones that you can fly first person view, or you can do different projects with. There was there was an underwater submarine project, and then there was a humanoid robot project. And I just immediately knew I wanted to work on humanoid robots. And so worked on that project for a while, finished my PhD, and now I get to work with a humanoid robot now. So for me, it was just I was just going in the direction of my interest and thinking about the thing that I would be willing to work for free on. And just because I'm just interested in it. And so that's how it is for me with humanoid robots. You would not have to pay me to work on humanoid robots. And I would just say for you, if you have some interest like that, that's what I would say you should move in the direction of. And if you're just wanting to do it because it pays well, that's probably not a great reason uh, to go for it. There might be something else. I think you can always find the economic engine. You can always find something that will pay you well, but are you willing to put in the work to be great at it? And do you have some if you have some level of aptitude? Do you have some level of ability in that area? And then are you willing to work hard in it? That's what I would say you should be thinking about. So if that's computer science for you, um, then I would say, yeah, go in that direction.
Thanks.
Hmm.
I have any more questions?
So
No more.
are you a junior or senior in high school?
I'm in a different country. I'm in the UK,
Okay.
and I'm in my final year of high school. So I was just I'm trying to get into an American university, but it's kind of hard the way the structure is here. So um
So
uh,
He would basically be, are you going into year 11, David?
yeah, I'm going to year 11.
How old are you again? Like 16, right?
Yeah, 16.
Yeah. So in America, I guess will be a junior is what it'll transfer to, but people can start college once they have the required, prerequisites. But
okay, so he would be able to go right into university.
he could, yes, if he wanted. But I know they have the A levels program in the UK, which is where they take 2 years to do further work in field. But he could definitely, if he wanted, look at universities and starting at 17, for example.
Okay. And
But
so is there
oh,
a
sorry.
reason to come to America, or there not schools in the UK um, that David would be interested in?
Uh, I just fancy America more.
Okay. So have you begun looking at schools?
Yeah,
So you have something in mind.
yes. I have some schools in mind. Well,
You
Okay.
mind sharing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Amos just said.
Or David, do you mind sharing some schools that you kind of like?
um, I wanted to go to like Yale or UCLA, UCI.
Okay, what's ECI?
UCI,
UCI. Um,
Irvine.
okay, University of California, Irvine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But David had another question, if you don't mind. Go ahead, David.
Uh, Forgot my question. I'll come back.
No problem. Nathaniel, do you have a question too? And then David, you can come on back.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Please, I wanted to know whether there was any. Wait, to start with, my name is Nathaniel. I want to know whether there's any projects I can start in my secondary school that would look good on my resume and show that I have passion for computers.
Okay. So um I'm not huge on resumes. I don't I don't care as much about that. It's not that it's not a bad thing, but I would say what kind are you already doing any computer programming right now?
I've had an internship in computer programming after my ninth grade, and I'm presently in the 11th grade.
What programming language did you use?
I was learning Python, and I also
Okay.
had some Arduino classes.
Okay. Do you have an Arduino?
Not really, I was just learning it.
So they supplied the Arduinos for you,
Yeah,
but
yes,
then
sir.
but you don't have one for yourself.
No.
Okay. Um, is there like I don't even remember how much they cost anymore, but is it possible for you to get one?
Possibly I could ask my parents.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's possible for you to get one, there's a bunch of different projects that you could do with Arduinos where but you don't even need that, but if you wanted to, you could there's a lot of projects you could do with Arduinos. In terms of Python, it depends on what your area is. So my area is artificial intelligence, and so there are a lot of interesting um, problems that you can solve and work on, where you can have these simulators that, I don't know if you're familiar with something called the pendulum swing up problem, but there are different problems that you could work on. And you don't Do you have a laptop or a computer to work with?
Yes, sir. The
Okay.
laptop I'm using right now is mine, fully
Okay.
functional.
Okay. So, have you done any coding with your laptop, or did you only work on computers that they had there?
Um, Recently this holiday, I was actually learning Python on my own, and I was also learning HTML and is this CSS? Yeah, I was learning HTML and CSS, and I was
Okay.
creating a website on my own.
Okay. So, what are you wanting to do? Do you want to create websites, or do you want to do more like computer science type programming?
Um, I actually want to do electrical engineering. Then
Uh-huh.
I want to have a master's in computer like I want to do electrical, then go deeper into computer in my master's.
Okay, so you want to build computers?
No, I want to like make programs, basically things like um web development and coding, things like that, or even robotics.
Okay, so those are multiple different things. It's not that you couldn't do all of them, but I guess I'm looking for, if is there a specific focus you want to go towards right now. So,
I'm not I'm not that specific about it yet. I'm not
okay, and that's
exactly sure.
fine. Yeah. I think you'll have to go deeper into each one of them to know if you want to keep going or not. So that's fine. So, for you right now, I would say I don't know how, it doesn't sound like you've done a whole lot with Python yet. So I would say, what were the projects that you worked on during holiday, that were Python based?
This holiday, all I did this holiday, like I was watching YouTube videos on Python to understand the programming language more.
Okay.
But what I actually practicalized was HTML and CSS, where I was designing my own website.
Okay. So do you have that website up and running?
Um, the YouTube video I was using to learn it, they said that I had to pay to actually put up the website. Like I have the website, right, but it's not online yet.
Okay. So yeah, you had to pay for a domain or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. All right. So you haven't practically worked on Python recently. Is that something you
No,
want to do? Or do you really like the web development stuff?
I actually enjoy both.
Okay, so
But
you would like to do some Python stuff.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I mean, so you're already on YouTube, so I think you would be able to find plenty of tutorials.
yeah,
uh,
I've been watching lots of those.
Okay. What kind of stuff are they coding up on these tutorials you're watching?
Um, they're not really coding anything yet. They're just teaching like introduction to the programming language, they're teaching me functions like multiplication, all that stuff, teaching me modulus, just how to use the language in general.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I would say. Um, let's think of some kind of task that you would want to do with that you could use Python to do the task. So you're learning about multiplication and modulus. I don't know if there's some kind of arithmetic or math-based task that you could carry out with that or
I
not.
could make a calculator.
You can make a calculator. Okay, so let's do that. So you're going to make a calculator. You know your computer has some calculator built in, but you're going to make your own. And we'll start with the simple one that can do plus, minus, uh, multiply, divide, maybe modulus.
Yeah.
Think about maybe 8 or 10 functions that the calculator is going to do. Maybe it does sine, cosine. And what you're going to do is you're going to create that and create a graphical user interface of your calculator for the screen and build that. Now, you have no idea. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you just need to do it. And so you need to go step by step through, start sketching out what you would like the graphical user interface to do, and then just go learn what you need to learn in Python to make it happen. You're going to write it in Python. So that's your project. This is the way most of these projects are going to work. There is not a step-by-step. There may be some tutorial that will show you step-by-step how to create a calculator, but what you're going to learn in the process of making your own calculator is more important than whatever. You'll have to learn whatever the Python functions are to get it to work. But this is how projects work in engineering. Somebody tells you, I have this problem. Now I need you to write this or code this up to solve it. So that can be yours. You can create Nathaniel's calculator, and maybe we put a time limit on it. Do that by the end of September, you will create your own calculator, and Amos will be asking you about it, I guess. But if you'll do that, you'll find that you'll learn the stuff for that. And what you're going to do is document everything that you're doing to do that, to create that calculator. And when you have the final result, you'll be able to test it and show that it will add these two numbers and it will subtract two numbers correctly, and it will do the division, and I can put it in like this. And so the process of going through and building that is going to be what's really helpful for you. And so then the next thing you do is going to be harder than the calculator. You'll come up with some new thing that's harder than that, and that's more interesting to you than that. And then you make that. And so after you've done several of those projects, now you can show, well, I learned how to make a calculator. I learned how to make this. I learned how to make this third thing, this fourth thing. And in the next few months, you will have 5 or 6 different projects you will have completed. And so when somebody asks you, can you do Python? You can show them that you do Python with the projects rather than saying that. And then it has nothing to do with a degree or school. So if someone wants to know your ability, you can just show it to them. And that will, it's not necessarily something you'd put on a resume, but you would just show them your portfolio of Python projects that you've carried out. And that goes for any language that you could work on. It'll be the same thing for web development. When you want to work on web development, you'll create websites, document everything, and put that in a portfolio that people can look at. But I would say start with that calculator, do it and put a time limit on it. Say, I'll do this in a month, and then start working on it.
Thanks a lot.
Sure, no problem.
One of the things I'm hoping to do is that, so imagine this ACT, SAT cohort, right? We go through cohorts throughout the year is my goal, but you will find people with similar interests that maybe can begin to chat with one another and encourage one another with those interests, like, hey, on this, we're going to have a computer science workshop and just chat about what projects are people doing in computer science. And so you might have David and Nathaniel encourage one another, right? In that context. And the way I look at it, Jerry, if you don't mind, let me think of one way this could look like. You know how in PhD school, you have an advisor, he's overseeing your work, right? And sometimes he might give you a little nudge in a certain direction, and then you have to go get the stuff done and come back and report back. What I think I want to do with some of our ACT, SAT prep cohorts is it's under the umbrella, I call it, of STEM excellence, which I think I talked to you about it. This idea of I want to have the best scientists and mathematicians. So I'm almost like this extra addition to the educational experience where I'm going to treat them like PhD students in the sense that I'm going to give them recommendations of projects to explore. If they do those projects, they're going to be way better off educationally compared to someone who's just going through a traditional school. So it's almost like I'm giving them nuggets and giving them, throwing the baseball, so to speak, easily for them. And if they just hit it out of the park, now they apply to some colleges and they say, oh, by the way, Nathaniel could say, hey, I built a calculator. That was the beginning. And then I did this other project and this other project. project, and they're gonna be like, wait a second, your classmates were all playing games. What were you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Well, this Amos and Jerry guy kind of encouraged me to make better use of my time. So that's where I'm thinking is we're almost outsourcing an educational service that enriches people's real-time education. So yeah, so I think that several people I know that want to go into computer science, we have a few on the call, there's a few more. And I think that definitely I want to create this little series of basic tasks that they should show that they're serious by completing those tasks.
Yeah.
David, did you remember your question? Otherwise, I was going to ask one more quick question before. And then Jerry, if you want to see an ACT question, I have a sample like a show, so you see what kids
So
are
it's
saying.
a math question,
Yep, a
ACT
math
math.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
the science one too, but I can show you the math just so you see what kids are learning these days.
Okay.
But David, did you have a question first?
No, not really. Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
No problem. So, Jerry, one more major question before we go into this ACT math question. What is so there are different kinds of engineering programs. There's some that are way more rigorous. And maybe they're not more rigorous, they're just prestigious. But what's your advice when it comes to, and like personally, when I was coming to America, initially my thought was Harvard, MIT. I mean, that's the best. I want to go to the best, right? So how do you navigate this issue of top colleges versus just reality and living your life without feeling like you're overwhelmed by the strain? How would you rank your experience at your college versus, let's say, going to MIT or Carnegie Mellon as an undergrad?
Right. So again, I didn't go to MIT or Carnegie Mellon, but but I have a PhD. So it's like it doesn't matter. Nobody says, well, what school did you get the PhD from? They don't ask that. They don't ask well, let me read your dissertation. I mean, they might want to and they can go read it. But that by that point, it's not about which did you go to. In fact, I would say really uh the big the reason why you would want to go to Harvard or Yale or MIT or some of these schools is that there is a network that you get to be a part of that is admittedly y- useful for people, but it doesn't mean that that your engineering education would be less because you didn't go to that school. There are good engineering schools other than those. So there's a financial aspect to this that we haven't really talked a lot about. And so
Yep.
if you're not able to afford that, I would much rather you go into a place that you can afford. I think you would much rather that
Yes.
than go somewhere where you're in a great deal of debt and have that hanging over you when you come out of school. And now there's a pressure on you that you don't want, or pressure on your parents that you don't, that's going to be difficult. So I think if you're being proactive in the way that we're talking about in high school and you take that into college, I think that's the big thing. That if you go into a school that's not MIT, but you've done 3 or 4 projects every semester through your entire career, and you get to the end of your career and you have 20 to 25 increasingly more difficult projects related to your major that had nothing to do with your classes, when you have 20 to 25 projects that you've worked on and they get harder, that started with a calculator, and then by the end you've created some really impressive thing because your skills just got better over time, that's going to be the thing that you can point people to. And in fact, when you have projects in your classes, you could even take maybe some old project you did and just make it a little bit more impressive, and now you have something for your class. And so all of these kinds of things, it really gets back to how much are you going to be doing the work apart from what they tell you, because you don't get a lot of guidance here. I don't know about in other countries how the college experience is. You don't get as much guidance here in terms of people trying to help you have an understanding of what you should be working on. As long as you do well in your classes, no one's saying anything. But then when it's time for you to get hired, if all you did was do well in your classes, that's not enough. And so they want to see internships, for example, here. So you do want to do some type of internship where you're working with other companies during the summers, and maybe do a co-op where you are working with companies during the school year. But if you also couple that with real real projects that you're working on in your field, and you can show them that, then that is something that will be appealing, because it also shows that employer or potential employer that this person is willing to work outside of just what they're given, and that will be useful to anybody hiring. And so, yeah, I would say the school itself doesn't matter as much as what are you bringing to the school. And so I'm kind of really trying to encourage you to make sure you are bringing your best. And so again, that's going to probably mean you don't get to have as much, I don't want to say fun, because if you're finding stuff that you like when you're building that calculator, you're going to stay up late working on that rather than go play soccer or foot. Is it? I guess everybody says football. Y'all call it football. Play football or basketball, or go have fun with friends. You should do that too. But maybe you find a group of friends where you all are creating really interesting engineering projects together. And then by the time you graduate, you can show people this work that you've been doing. And if you think that way while in college, then you're going to be able to have a lot more fun as an adult anyway, because you're going to be doing much better financially. You're going to have the kind of work that you want to do. Your work is going to be fun to you. I would say that's what I would have been telling myself at 17 to work on and get there quicker. But I'm thankful to be there now. I get to work with this AI camera. It's fun to me. So
No, that's really cool, sir. Thank you so much.
sure.
By the way, the research came out this week, guys. I just want to read you the data. One of the things they said, there's a something called let's call it the I regret index. So this is based on your college degree. What is the highest amount of degrees that have the highest regrets? And they are actually in the social sciences and the behavioral sciences. Some of those things that Jerry and I talked about, those will be in the I regret category. Degrees that don't have practical application. The degree with the least amount of regrets was engineering. I thought that was interesting. That's the degree with the least amount of regrets. And then computer and information sciences right after that. And then health. So health, computer, information sciences, and engineering. People don't regret those as much. Education, unfortunately, was somewhere up there with the regrets. And that's partly because imagine you go to school to be a teacher and then you got kids growing up today with no respect. It's like, it's not going to match up with what it was like, yikes. And so, but the students we have on this call, they're very respectful. So that's very good. Salute them. Joseph, by the way, Joseph is one of my SAT instructors too. I didn't know if he had any final questions for you before I put my screen on the board.
Guess not.
Okay, no problem. So I think you guys should be able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jerry, you probably were not expecting to see any of these today, but if you don't mind, let me keep you for a few more minutes. I just wanted to introduce the boys formally to the 2024-2025 school year ACT set of practice problems. But I want to show you the math section. Before I do that though, boys, if you don't mind, please, these sections that are here, I would encourage you to read them first, like a message to students, overview of the ACT, test taking strategies. All of this stuff is important because there are some calculators that are not allowed on the ACT, for example. So it makes sense to know what those calculators are. Some days I see some calculators and I joke that they look like they can fly planes around because they're so complicated. All these Texas Instruments advanced calculators. And so please, boys, let's make sure we read those, or whoever else watches this part of the talk. So Jerry, just to kind of bring you up to speed, this is where people get scholarships. Is one of the ways is if they get a perfect score, and this is the structure right here: English, math, reading, and science. The essay is optional, but I would encourage people to write it anyways. I think the problem with the ACT, and I think I told Dr. Jerry earlier, is that kids don't have time to practice when they're older, so they should start practicing earlier on. Look at the math section of the ACT. It says 60 questions in 60 minutes. I mean, how many people can do a problem a minute, right, with accuracy? That's really part of what it comes down to, is can you do that after you've done 75 English questions, right? So now it's like, what's your stamina, you know? That's what the ACT is about as far as that goes. So let's go down to the math section here. I'm just gonna find, sorry, that's writing. I apologize. The science section of the ACT, I'm just gonna flip through for a second, but you would notice that they give them a lot of passages. where they have to read these passages about different things, and the answers are in the passage. That's what I tell kids. You just got to know how to read and focus and take out what you need. But there was a section that I thought you would find interesting as well. So this is English. We're not going to do anything with English today, but this is English. English is English. Even if you're in 8th grade, you should be able to read this and answer the question. My problem with the English is kids are texting in short language. They don't even know how to write full sentences. So how are they going to know what sentence is wrong? So please, everybody, text in full sentences. That's my moral of the story in English. Okay, math. Let's go to, I would say one of the easiest sections is math. So this is the math section of the ACT. And the thing about math is that it does start from easiest to most difficult. And so for the boys on the call, Dr. Jerry and I are done with the days of the ACT, or at least in taking it. But if you look at the ACT questions here, every single question in the beginning here, we should be able to do in about 30 to 40 seconds. That's sort of the way they're set up. And so after this call, after the webinar portion, if they don't have questions for you, what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to answer any questions they have, so I don't bore you with math questions today. But they basically are going to go through every one of these questions. I do want to mention one strategy, and then Jerry, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't hurt if you have any strategies for math test taking that you wanted to drop before you
Okay.
if you could share that too. But when you look at problems like this, like you look at number 5, we call that like foiling in America. I don't know what other people call it, but this idea where you multiply the first terms and the outer terms, inner and the last terms. But the idea is that you should be able to eliminate some things from the get-go. And actually, you know what? Looking at this problem right here, there is no way the answer could be E if the values are not the same for both the first and the second term, right? Because that would be like the difference of 2 squares. So I'm just saying it helps to have some nuggets in your back pocket so you can eliminate answers that don't make any sense. So I would say the first 20 questions, people should try to do them in maybe about 40 seconds per question or less, because the questions are getting harder, right? Now, one question I have for the boys is, when you look at these questions, whatever the question is, are you able to pinpoint what the concept is asking in terms of what is the topic in question? And so I think when I look at number 3, for example, okay, they want me to substitute 2 in for X. Okay, that's like a function operation involving substitution of values. Okay, boom. So then if I don't know how to do number 3, I go on YouTube or I email, Mr. Amos and say, I don't know how to plug in values for a function. I think that habit of knowing exactly what you're doing is important. What do you think, Dr. Jerry, when it comes to math problems like this? Do you see that benefit of knowing exactly what the concept in question is?
Yeah, that's going to be vitally important. Do you understand this? So I don't know how with the ACT, is it like this where you can go back to previous questions that
Yes.
so you can
Yes.
skip and then go back? Okay.
Yep.
All right, because I know some of the computer-based ones, you have to basically just answer what you have, and I don't know if you can go back on those or not. But yeah, I would say I think for multiple choice tests specifically, just whatever you're taking, being able to eliminate answers that are obviously wrong is very helpful, because sometimes you can eliminate 3 or 4 and now you just have the right answer. You know what it would have to be. And so
Yep.
I think number 5 is like that. I think number 1, you just have to kind of just know what that's asking for. But yeah,
That's
so
probability. So I think
right.
the thing is, even though it's very wordy for number 1, it's like basically know that the answer is not going to be too much to find,
Right. And so yeah, it really, you could, number 1 could probably be 2 sentences, but I think it's probably just long just to maybe get you to think that there's more to it than that. So so yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah,
too
these
crazy.
are all pretty simple, straightforward.
Okay.
Um
And
so
and I'll
these
give the
guys
boy
are
time. Oh, go ahead.
these guys should have no problem with any of this right here.
Yeah. So I think this page I'll let them do after, but let me just move down towards more of the later questions. Let's see what
Yeah.
you think as we go down. So here we're stepping it up a little bit. We got some geometry coming in. We got
Okay.
some percents. I don't know if there's any question there that gets your blood excited. You can talk about it. Otherwise, I just wanted to show.
Um No, nothing particularly.
No problem.
And again,
Notice
they actually. Oh, wait.
I was just gonna say 11 is like a probability again. So there's really that part of making sure we know the formula for probability. So boys, if you have a piece of paper there, the formula is the number of required outcomes over the number of possible outcomes. And so basically you find out what is the required outcome they're looking for and what is the possible outcome. What is probability of getting a 1 when you roll a die, for example? It's 1/6 because 6 is the possible number of outcomes. And so here they got 8 marbles, red, 9 yellow, 7 green. How many additional red marbles do you have to add to the 24 to get a probability of 3/5? So it's actually probability and equation solving like together. So anyways, some of these problems are actually fun. I think we need to be doing these for like a Sudoku alternative, like just for fun, on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But go ahead, sir. Were you going to say something before I go to the end?
No, I was just saying, I think one of the most difficult things with these kinds of problems, again, is just systematically, like for number 11, setting up the equation there. So, how do you set that equation up to be able to solve? Because once you've done that, you're just solving an equation. So it's not, so I think many people look at the words and are not able to kind of to comprehend, okay, how do I set this up? Where is there sometimes, because there's all this information that's in there that doesn't matter, and
Yep.
you have to ignore that stuff and see what they're actually asking for and then solve for it. So that
Yeah.
skill is what you're teaching people.
How much do you emphasize taking notes or showing your work, Dr. Jerry? Were you one of those students that wouldn't show work and just tell me the answer? Because those were the ones that threw us off, those kinds of students.
Well, I mean, some of that was on the first page. I like to show work, and again, in engineering school, we had to show. It was drilled into us to show work. I had one professor that, um, if you had anything wrong on a homework problem, the entire problem was wrong. So if he gave you 3 homework problems and you had anything wrong on a problem, you could easily get an O for 3 for that problem. So you had to show all your work, and every bit of it better be right, or the entire problem would be marked wrong. Now, I didn't know that you could actually just resubmit it and get full credit if you, because I was a transfer student and didn't know about this. And there were students that were in that class that had taken it 2 times previously, and they were in there for their 3rd time or 4th time. And so I was getting all these zeros at first on my homework, and finally turned it around. I aced his final exam too, like didn't get anything wrong. But by that time, I had gotten such low scores on homework and didn't realize I could resubmit that but I was very pleased with, getting, you know, the final grade for that class wasn't a good grade, but I aced his final exam. So that felt good. But
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, and in these, yeah, show your work. It doesn't have to be every single thing, but like for that problem, if you look and say, okay, what is this asking me for? Well, I have to have a 3/5 probability. I'm adding a certain number of red marbles to the 8 that I already have, and that same number of marbles is being added to the 24. So then it's just what 3/5 equal 8 plus x over 24 plus x, and solve it. So if you just do that, think in that way, I would write that equation, then I'd solve that equation, and then I've got the answer, whatever
Yep.
x is. So that's what I would say but I know some people would probably just try to immediately do it in their head. I wouldn't recommend that. So
I agree with you 100%. So then they have some geometry stuff. Actually, there's a Rubik's Cube one here, but my kids are doing something like a Rubik's Cube these days. I don't know how to do a Rubik's Cube. That's my confession. But anyways, I need to learn that. But that's an interesting perspective there. That is still bringing some of these concepts that we've talked about into light. There's some geometry, as the boys can see. So I'm going to email the boys. I actually have a video series that goes over each type of problem on the ACT. So they're going to get that video after this call. But I'm just showing us a little bit of some of the stuff going on. Let's actually look at 26 for a second, Mr. Jerry. Maybe this is practical enough.
okay.
They said this is the square kilometers of Earth's surface that is land, and then the rest is water, which is pretty cool. If a returning space capsule lands at the random point on Earth's surface, which of the following is the best estimate of the probability that a space capsule will land in water? I'm beginning to think these guys love probability, Dr. Jerry. Like, what's up with it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, which is what, and I think what happens is you see the 10 to the 8th and all of that, and you start getting all concerned about that. But again, the probability is just simply, well, you had this very specific way of saying it just now, but the probability would be um, the
Required
the
over the possible.
required over the possible. So in this case, 3.63 divided by what, 5.11? Is that right?
Yeah, if you add those together, Nathaniel and David, can you help us there? Was 3.63 plus 1.48.
Well, yeah, I think it looks like it's 5.11. But if it's if it's 5.11, then we know it can't be K. We know it can't be J. It has to be, well, just because 3.63 is larger than 1.48, you know it can't be J or K. So it has to be F, G, or H. And so
Yep.
then it's just a matter of which one that would be. And it looks like it would be something more like, I don't know, 3.6 over, well, just 3 over 5 would be roughly 60%, but it would, uh, so it would be probably G or H if I had to guess, but I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not doing the, I don't know what let's see.
I would guess the H2, but I don't know if the boys have calculators handy. We'll make sure we get those for future discussions. This is number 26, and I think so that's actually 71%.
It's actually 7 so G, it's G.
71%.
Yeah.
Yep. So this problem I like because it brings something to life where kids are looking at, okay, this is how much the Earth's surface is actually land. This is how much is water. Now, here's what I do with my students sometimes. I extend the problem and I ask them, what is the amount of land that everyone on the planet can have out of that 1.48 times 10 to the 8th? Like if we wanted to just take land on the earth and say, okay, there's 8 billion people on the planet, how much land can each person own, right? That's a fun math problem, I think. Like now you're beginning to think, oh, okay. And then when you find out how much land we can own, imagine the people that tell you the world is overpopulated, blah, blah, blah. Now you can be able to tell them, wait, there's land in Wyoming, there's land in Montana, we got some land. And maybe people don't like the cold, but there's land. And so I think that you could use math to prove a point. It's part of what I'm saying. And actually, Dr. Jerry, one thing I didn't tell you about, because we talked a little bit about, this question of the age of the earth. Sorry, I just want to sneak in one random math fact about this. Do you know that there is actually a probability calculation that was done for the amount of time required to build a protein? And they found that it's actually mathematically impossible for a random protein to be built mathematically based on that. So anyways, I'm going to send you the paper, but I just thought, isn't that interesting?
Is that Douglas Axe? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Seen that.
So that's interesting that somebody has done the math and it's like, guys, you need to know what you're saying. And so anyways, when people say we're overpopulated, my question is, what is your math to back it up? And maybe we need people to move out of New York City. My view is that we need to have less people condensed in an area, but that's my view. People can choose to not take it. But Nathaniel and David, what I did in number 26 here is the population of the human race right now is about 8 billion. And so if somebody asks you, this could be an ACT, SAT question, by the way. If someone asks you, how much land would each person get if this is the amount of land on the earth? So let's actually think about it for a second. So it's, it's 1.48 times 10 to the 8th. And what is a billion in scientific notation? Yep, so it'd be 8.0 times 10 to the 9th. So then you're basically doing 1.48 times 10 to the 8th divided by 8.0 times 10 to the 9th. What do we get? Actually, let me see if it'll let me write. Mr.
I'm
Jerry.
calculating.
Okay. Mr. Jerry, thanks for sticking around longer because I didn't even realize your math degree, could come in handy for us.
Right. Yeah.
We're just having a hangout session. I owe you a cookie.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, it's just 1.48 divided by 80, right? So
yep.
So and then that's square kilometers. So
and then I wonder if we can convert the square kilometers to a more usable form. You see how the math problem, like to a form that people can envision better. So part of the point of the math is to prove a point that can hopefully put people to rest, like calm down,
Yeah.
I actually heard a talk while I was in England where somebody was quoting somebody that said, if you have more than 2 kids, you're basically wicked. Like that was the quote. They're like, why would you be having a lot of kids? That was their argument. And so I just thought, yikes, people are saying this kind of stuff, but what is the math to back up their claim about human resources being limited?
Right. Well, yeah, it's more of a philosophy thing, of course. It's not really they've been saying this kind of thing for a long time. And
Yep.
now people have been actually acting on it, and now there's going to be a population decline when all
Yep.
of as the baby boomers get older and die. Here in America, at least. I don't know how it is in the UK and other places, but
Yeah.
and so maybe Gen Z will start having kids again. I don't know. And the millennials.
Yeah.
You're doing your part. Like, we appreciate you.
Welcome to the SAT course where we teach you about
Yeah.
life.
Right.
So the answer is actually 0.0185. David and Nathaniel, do you see that?
I actually wrote that on the board.
He just wrote it.
Oh, perfect. Look at technology. Okay, perfect. So we got 0.0185, but this is in square kilometers. Now, Dr. Jerry, I don't know if you're familiar with kilometers and metric as much as some other people, but
No.
what would 0.0185 be if we converted that to like miles? If you guys have a calculator, you can actually just type in, let's just go ahead and use 0.02. So 0.02 times, like, let's convert that from square kilometers to square miles. I want to see if it can make sense for Americans. So in America, they don't use metric.
Yeah, we don't really use that. We use something like acres or
Let me see if we
we would
convert it.
generally say acres, how much
Acres?
land you have, how many acres of land.
Square kilometers to acres. Okay, I just did it. And actually, maybe we can write a Python language to do this.
Yeah, this would be an easy problem to do in Python. But yeah.
So it's 4.94. Thank you. So David and Jonathan, the answer to the problem right now is that in the world today, there's about 5 acres of land per person if we had to divide the amount of land to each person. What is 5 acres? Now, that's a question that Dr. Jerry can help us. What is 5 acres look like? Or what does an acre look like?
That's a lot of land. I mean, it's you don't, most people would have a house on a lot. It's not going to be an acre, not even 1 acre. So certainly not almost 5 acres. It's hard to imagine having 5 acres in the city, for instance. That's generally, you're out in the country somewhere and you're able to have some land, several acres. Yeah, I don't. What do you all use? You use square meters, square kilometers when you're looking at area of land.
What do you use in England, David? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know what you would use. I honestly don't know what acres looks like, but I know if someone had 5 acres, that's a lot of land here.
Yeah. I mean, 1 acre, they say, is about 75% of the size of a standard football field. So if you take 75% of that, even just 1 football field is pretty good. If I lived on 1 football field. So clearly, mathematically speaking, again, if people don't mind the cold, there is enough space for us to keep going. We got room.
Yeah.
So no problem. So that was number 26. Let's go to the hardest, well, not the hardest, but one of the hardest, which is on the last page. Actually, 1 second. Let's go up here. We're going to go up to number 45. Okay, boys, let's see what we do with 45 over here. What do you guys think of that one? Number 45. Yes. So honestly, right away with number 45, I don't know if the boys remember this. There's something called the difference of 2 squares, and that's at work in that problem. So if you guys want to write that in your notes, difference of 2 squares. And that's because x plus y and x minus y are like, they look the same, except the sign is different between them. So therefore, if you look at the denominator, there's only one of them that shows the difference of two squares right away.
I think that's E.
That's E. So that would be E for number 45. It's just knowing the difference of two squares was at work. So guess what? You just saved yourself some time by knowing the difference of two squares, right? Number 39 here is what Dr. Jerry's people in electrical engineering, I think you guys use matrices or linear algebra. So
Yeah.
that's some of that kind of stuff is knowing how to multiply matrices together.
Yeah.
Have you guys both learned that, David and Nathaniel?
No.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Let's see.
So when you're multiplying two matrices together, or specifically a row matrix times a column matrix, basically you're going to come up with your final value is just going to be equal to the first element of X times the first element of Y plus the second element of X times the second element of Y. So it's -1 times -2 plus 0 times -1. And so the answer is 2. So that's just a is you would have, once you learn more about matrices, that's how those simple kinds of matrices work. But then you'll have square matrices and rectangular matrices, and but that's linear algebra. So I guess that I'm trying to remember if I learned anything about matrices before linear algebra. I guess not.
They are making people learn it now in algebra 2. Sorry, let me
They are okay.
They are, yeah. So that's number 39. Yeah. So basically, boys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you, again, a list of every topic on the exam and then recommended videos for each one. And then your goal is to be able to say, hey, number 39, I don't know what they're talking about. So then you watch the video for that one. But then number 45, you might say, oh, I know that one. No problem. There's a fun one here before we go to the last page. Number 43, they said, what is the area in square units of a circle that has a circumference of 12 pi units long? So it's almost like they drop two things on people. They're like, what is the area if you know the circumference? Well, if you don't know what the circumference formula is, then you're going to be like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't even know what to do with it. So if you guys can remember one formula for today, the circumference is 2 pi r or pi d, while the area is pi r squared. So those are the formulas you're going to need to tackle that particular problem. Let me see if it'll let me write this here. So the area is pi r squared, and then the circumference is 2 pi r. So it's like systematic thinking that engineers use. You need to know you take the circumference they've given you and plug it into this formula. And based on the answer you get, you plug it in for r, because you're solving for r essentially from the first one. So very good. By the way, Nathaniel, you go to Loyola, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think David, you also had gone to Loyola at one point.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's funny, you guys might end up knowing one another, or maybe I've seen one another at some point. But yeah, so the problem number 43, you have to start with knowing the circumference of a circle and then find r and then plug it into the area of a circle. I love these problems in the sense that they get you to think on multiple layers. And so I believe that r is just, let me see.
He's almost got it written. Yeah,
Oh,
6.
okay, 6. And
So
then,
now he's got to find the area.
which would be r squared, which is 36, right?
Yep,
And
he's got it.
36 pi. Okay, very good. Excellent. We're gonna start doing some. I look forward to doing more math problems with you guys. You guys are making me feel young now. Okay, let's try with the last page, and I'm just gonna see. By the way, on the ACT, there are only 4 trigonometric questions, and so when you see a question like 42, that is one of the 4 trick questions you're gonna get. Okay, this is the last page. When we go to the last page and we look at like the last 2 problems, so notice that trick question is here. We need to know how to graph sine and cosine, which is, I think, very important in electrical engineering. Also, I is very important. It seems like this page is just a bunch of electrical engineering type questions. Sorry, let me clean my notes here. So this is where we're going to end our math portion here. So we have, these are going to be some of your hardest questions. Well, hardest compared to the others, I guess. Wow, there's some good ones here. Okay, we'll just take one there and then we can begin to land the plane. I'll let the boys actually have some practice time as well on their own, just so, yeah, so they could tackle some problems themselves. But looking at these problems here, David and Nathaniel, is there anyone that you think you want us to wrestle with together?
I think 59.
59, okay. Okay, we got that, okay. Let's remember our Soka Tua. I don't know if we're gonna need, no, actually, we're not gonna use that. Law of sines and law of cosines, I guess.
It's not the right angle triangle.
Yep, very good catch. So then Soka, law of sines and law of cosines, which you guys can pull up the formulas for those if you want. I'm gonna actually grab a PDF of that while you guys work.
I think this is law of sines, right?
I believe so. Well, actually, yeah, so you got an angle, a side, and an angle. So now it's like, which one is best for a side angle and angle?
Yeah, I was just saying that, I mean, if we know 240 and we need to know what it's the string length is what they want.
Oh, yeah, so you
And
can
so
find
we
the
know,
angle.
so since we know the opposite angle of the string and we can find the opposite angle of the 240, then it should just be sine of that angle over 240 equals sine of 45 over the length of the string. I think that's law of sines, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And so then you would just be able to have your calculator and do that. And so solve for the length of the string.
So what is sine 40?
Well, I guess so the first thing you would do is find out the angle, the missing angle. What is the degree of the missing
I
angle?
was actually confused because I thought that the law of sines was only used for right angle triangles.
No, it could be used for
No.
others.
And then this should be easy.
Yes. But that's the thing, you got to set it up. So that angle between the angle up there with where the kite is, what is that? What angle is that?
So that's 60 degrees.
Okay. So you got 60 degrees there. And they make those easy because so that means we can basically do all this math in our head then.
Yeah.
So sine of 60 degrees divided by 240 equals sine of 45 degrees divided by the length of the string. Or you could invert it and have the length of the string divided by sine of 45 equals, okay, I don't know what this is.
So actually, Nathaniel, we can't use tan for this one because it's not a right angle triangle.
Yeah, you would only be able to use tangent with the right angle triangle, but you can use law of sines here. That's what you'd have to use.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's only sines you can use.
Yep, the law of sines.
The law of sines, yes. Tangent is based on a right triangle.
So I'm actually sending them a file right now that will give them the formulas they need for the law of sines and law of cosines.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you got so Nathaniel has yeah. So what is the seven?
The 75, is that what he means? You wouldn't need
so
that
so he
side though.
yeah, we don't need that side. We need the string side from the A to the kite.
Sir, I wrote S to represent the string.
Yeah, but see, you're looking at that's not the string. The dotted line is not the string.
Oh, mistake.
And David, I sent the email to with the law of science to you now. So mom's email.
Okay.
I'll send it to Nathaniel too. Um, but basically, we need the law of sines handy. And then the law of cosines is a little interesting. But there's 4 questions on trig, right? We should still know it, but I'm just kind of saying never let a question slow you down if you could keep working on the others and then come back and then, focus on those other ones. So on this setup, we have sine 60 over 240. So the law of sine says take the sine of the angle and then use the side across from the angle. So that's how we get sine 60 over 240 is equal to sine 45 over the string. Now, boys, there's a secret I got to tell you. It's called special triangles. Special triangles are 45, 60, and 30 degrees. Those are the special triangles. There's actually a way for you to derive it, and so I'll send you a video on that. I love special triangles. I actually think they're one of my favorite topics in all of math. It's just the beauty that you can construct them and then find the sine, cosine, and tangent. So remember special triangles, please. So what is sine 60 degrees?
Zero, 0.5.
Okay, perfect. In degrees, right? Because you have radians and degrees. In degrees, it will be 0.5. Very good. Joseph,
Wait. Sine of 60 degrees?
actually, give me 1
That's
second.
0.866.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sine of 60 degrees is square root of 3 over 2.
That's correct. Square root of 3 over 2 or 0.866. I apologize. I was looking at the radians one and I thought the degrees one would be 0.5, but
Yeah.
I need to change my calculator. Joseph, you can fact check us too. Okay, that's correct. And then what about 45?
Sine of 45 degrees. So
Yep.
do you learn that in terms of the like square root of
I
2 over
just checked
2?
my calculator and it's 0.7071.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the issue here is that you're going to need to do it in terms of the square roots or else well, I mean, I guess you can do it, but then you're going to have to check it,
Yeah.
right? So instead of 0.7071, it's actually the square root of 2 over 2. And instead of 0.866, it's square root of 3 divided by 2. And so you're going to need to do it that way in order to get the exact final answer instead of an estimated one
What I could do is let me actually show them that special triangle quickly. It just takes me a second and then they can use it. So let me I'll switch to a whiteboard.
Okay.
But Nathaniel has it going
Yeah,
here. So
he's got it going here. He's almost
he's almost there. Okay.
all
And
right.
then we have to multiply top and bottom we have to rationalize the denominator.
Right.
So that will be square root of 3 over 3, which is
You see it now? Oh, he's almost got it.
So then that square root of 3. So any radical times itself is just that radical, the number, the radicand, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to do negative, but that's fine. It's still gonna turn out fine.
That's when you're finding the conjugate of a radical is when you use a negative like value.
Yeah, you don't have to do negative there. So, all right, 240 square root of 6. All right, almost there.
80 square root of 6.
All right, that's it.
That's it. Did you like put a check mark like you're correct?
Yeah, check. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But like it wasn't that hard. It's just you have to use law of sines. You have to know what those are in terms of using the radicals.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
Wow, so the ACT is not terrible. Again, it's just knowing all these
No.
different formulas handy. And that's
Yeah.
why, as I said, Dr. Jerry, notice that if I'm in 8th grade, I have time to practice this over and over again.
Yeah.
If I'm older, I got chemistry, physics, I got other classes to do. I don't have time. So 8th or 9th grade is the sweet spot for sure for practice. So let me just on the side here, you guys can see this square that I just drew. So this is going to be called a special triangle. If you put these dashes around, they're all equal. Each of these angles are 90 degrees at the corners of this shape. So this is called, what I'm about to show is called a 45, 45, 90 degree angle. And the way it works is that I can split these angle in half. And so guess what? This side of the angle, let me see if there's a different color to give me. This angle here technically has 45 inside and 45 outside. And this side has 45 inside and 45 outside. If my values around this square are 1, 1, 1, 1, that means that this triangle, which I'm going to bring out here, is going to look like this. This is a 45, that's a 45, that's a 90. This is 1, this is 1. And using Pythagoras theorem, I can find this to be square root of 2. So basically, in a 45, 45, 90, if someone asks what is the sine of 45 degrees, you say your opposite, which is 1, and your hypotenuse, which is square root of 2. So sine 45 is 1 over square root of 2. But you need to change that. You need to rationalize the denominator. You multiply the top and bottom by square root of 2 over 2. So then you get square root of 2 over 2 as your answer. So now if someone says, what is sine 45? Guess what? It's square root of 2 over 2. Here's a crazy thing. What's the cosine of 45? It's square root of 2 over 2. It's the same thing because the adjacent over the hypotenuse is also square root of 2 over 2. We just derived the special triangle for 45, 45, 90. I'm not going to go into the other one right now, just so you guys have time to practice, but I'll just set it up for you and you can play with it. But imagine if this is 2, 2, and 2 in an equilateral triangle. That means these angles are 60, 60, and 60. What if I split this in half and now I have a 30 here and a 30 there? So now you have 2 over here, 1 over here, and 30 over here. So just like the Python example, if someone said, can you please derive sine 30, sine 60, and cosine 30, cosine 60 using this information of a triangle that has the following length. This is 2, this is 1, this is 60, this is 30, and this is 90. And now we can play with it later. So I know there's a lot on the page, but I just wanted to get your brain thinking because we're going to hit it again later. Sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
Before I give you guys practice time, which is something I always want to do at the end, let you guys kind of just practice for 30 minutes and send me any questions. I want to actually remind you, I'll send you this document on the very end, the science section. So the math and the science are the ones that we should zoom in on. Even if you're taking the SAT, I would always encourage people to try the ACT as well, just to see where you land, because you might actually like the ACT format better, which even these days, Harvard and MIT are taking either exam. So it doesn't matter which one you take. Any of these colleges, Alabama, Georgia Tech, everybody's open to most of these exams. So I would just try both. And let's say you scored a 95% on the ACT and you're scoring an 80% on the SAT. Well, why not use the ACT to submit your application for those scholarship opportunities you can get? Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen here. And so the takeaway then, boys, is Dr. Jerry has given us a vision for engineering to think about projects and things like that. I'm no longer young, so I don't have I don't have the free time I used to have. But if I had free time right now, I would be working on my programming like nobody's business. I would be doing a lot of programming or just getting projects done. But you guys have some time, so make time weekly to practice the craft that you hopefully want to do someday, like be practicing. But number 2 comes down to the ACT, SAT strategy of practice. So you practice the problems. Any problem you get wrong, we have to find out why. That's the attitude we take. So if you get this problem we just did wrong, then it tells me we need to review either your trick understanding or your ability to work with radicals. So, okay, if you guys don't mind, can you guys shoot me your emails and then I'll send you practice problems and then I'll let you guys, we'll communicate from there. So if you guys can just, amosthemathguy@gmail.com is my email. So if you want me to email it from there, or have you received the document already? Like in the past. Let me find it here. While I get the document to them, any final words, Dr. Jerry, before they head out?
No.
Yeah.
Sounds like y'all are y'all doing this on Saturdays all the time? Is that what this is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're on the right track. Like, I'm not the person to talk to about that. I just walked in, took the SAT, and walked back out. I didn't do any prep, so that's good that y'all are doing that. So don't do like I did. I probably could have made a really, really good score. I did well, and got scholarships and stuff because of it. But yeah, practice going in. Don't just walk in and just take it and then walk out. Do that work, and it'll really help you out and maybe get you into some schools that you are really looking to get into. It'll really help.
Yeah, thanks for telling them. Even though I did this, this is not what you should do.
Yeah,
Even
I would
though,
not have done. I would have done this. I would have done something like this, but my parents didn't go to college, so I knew nothing about college. I just thought they call it an aptitude test, so I just thought it's an aptitude test. I'll go in and take it. So whatever my aptitude is, I can't change that by studying. That
yeah,
shows you what I knew. I didn't know anything. So, but
wow.
because I was a good student and I was good at taking tests, I could walk in and make a really good score. But it would have been really good if I had done if I worked with Amos or something at the time. I would have been like, I know how to do all that stuff now because of all of the math I've taken since. But if I
Yeah.
had been prepared, it would have just been because I mean, I did decently well and I was getting all kinds of colleges mailing me stuff. But if I had done that, I would have really been. I think about it now, but I mean, I'm glad of how everything's turned out. But
Yeah.
I'll know
What
now
college?
to tell everybody, hey, yeah, I will. You wanna study, you wanna prepare for this.
What college did you go for your undergrad again?
I went to Freed Hardeman University first in West Tennessee, and then I went to Tennessee State University I went to Freed Hardeman for the math degree, and then I went to Tennessee State for the mechanical engineering degree.
And then your master's and PhD in the same place?
My master's is at Tennessee State. My PhD was at here in Huntsville, University of Alabama in Huntsville.
Okay. And what are you guys called as far as a mascot in Alabama?
Ours is called Charger, so it's
Okay.
it's a horse. It's
Is that the Crimson Tide?
No, the Crimson Tide is in Tuscaloosa. So that's the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. We're the University of Alabama in Huntsville. There's also a University of Alabama in Birmingham. There's some kind of dragon type thing.
Okay.
Tuscaloosa is the Crimson Tide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they even go to school there or they just play football all the time? It seems like that's all they're
Yeah,
doing.
there are people that go to school there. Yeah. Yeah, they do. But football, they are big on football down here. So
Okay. So
we don't actually have a football team in Huntsville here, but
you guys
big
got
on.
rockets to work on. You don't
Yeah,
have
we
time
got
for
we are big on rockets down here. So I'm
okay.
hoping to do some stuff with robots here, and we got plenty of engineers around, and so
Okay.
building a robotics company down here is a good place to do it.
Yeah.
All
If
right,
you don't mind. Oh,
yeah, yeah, he's
that's
yeah,
that's
that's Alabama Tuscaloosa. That's not me, but there are a
okay.
lot of people that love football down here. American football, I need to say that because I keep forgetting I'm talking to people that are not here or that
Yeah.
are not from here.
So if we go to Tuscaloosa, we should make sure we don't tease football versus soccer. That you just stay out of that.
Yeah, if you say football, nobody thinks soccer down here. They only think the American football. And they're Big Al, yeah, the mascot. In
Yeah.
fact, I think they may have a game today. It's
Okay.
Saturday, so
Yeah.
this is the first week of college football here in America. So it's a big week, and so I'm sure
Okay.
there are some people here in Huntsville watching the game. I don't care, so I don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're glad you don't care as much. But
Yeah,
here's the last major question or homework for you is basically, can you find out if Like, what is the population like in terms of international students at the University of Alabama in Huntsville? I'm just curious. Like, is that a university I should be telling people to think about? Like, would you recommend it as a university with potential and opportunities for kids who want to be computer and electrical engineers?
Yeah, I mean, again, first of all, it's so the most of the international students I knew a lot of the Indian students here. So I didn't
Okay.
know as many of the African students. Um, I'm not sure why that was, but just in engineering at least, I just saw a bunch of Indian students here. So
Yeah.
so I had a friend that was Indian, and so like if I want some tandoori chicken or something like that, you can find these people that they cook that authentic Indian food.
Yes.
But I haven't found any African people here,
Okay.
or I didn't while I was in graduate school. But
Okay.
um, yeah, we have international students here. I don't know what the population is. I couldn't tell you that, but we
Okay.
have quite a few here. And of course, the issue that you're going to run into in many cases is can you get the citizenship or can you get the green card? And I didn't know much about that until talking to some of these international students that have struggled with that. I have a friend that he now lives in Birmingham, and he found work there, but he graduated. He finished his PhD a few years back and found work there, and now I think he has citizenship. I don't remember. And then I have
Okay.
another friend that he moved to Texas, and they're working on some kind of artificial heart project
Yeah.
in Texas. And so I believe he has citizenship. And yeah, so a lot of times that's that becomes the issue because you have to find a company that will sponsor you basically
Yeah.
to be able to get that citizenship. And so if you don't have that, that's why many people go to school because they can get some kind of extension, I guess, on their green card or whatever it is that allows them to be here. And if you go to your PhD, you can stay even longer until you
Yep.
can maybe find work. So there's a lot of that here, but because there's also a lot of not just NASA, but there's some Army stuff here. A
Yep.
lot of times they do want you to be a citizen. So, but I mean, there's a lot of opportunities elsewhere. Just like those friends of mine that were from India, they found opportunities. So
Okay. Well, I think that
yeah,
that particular issue, maybe we can tell the boys that one of the ways you can maybe be more guaranteed citizenship is come up with some invention that America says we need you here. Like you're
yep,
not going anywhere. That's
yeah,
so if you shine so bright in your field, it's harder for them to be like, your time is up. The way it does work, I did I came as an international. The way it works is you get your 4-year degree and then they give you a year to work and then they actually extend it for another 2 or 3 years if you're in a STEM field. So basically, you can actually work for about 3 to 4 years before you decide if you want to go to a PhD or something like that. So,
okay,
or there's a company, the companies that you work for can sponsor your visa. It's called the H-1B visa, and that's what the boys can and work towards. So you either get a H-1B visa, or you solve a problem that makes them not want you to leave ever, or you go to a PhD if you want to stay, 10 longer than normal. So yeah. So those are the options. So,
yeah. It
but
was
yeah, no,
important to figure that out. Yeah. Because
yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
don't want
Sorry.
to get here, you don't want to get here, have no plan, and then be forced to go back earlier than what you thought. So you want to have a plan if you're gonna be trying to come here because yeah. So have a plan of action, and again, have that portfolio there so that a company says, "Hey, we'll sponsor him to stay here so that he can do good work for us." So
Yeah. So networking really matters. That's very key.
yes,
And I'm
yeah,
I'm
for sure.
available. I'm out here in Texas. God willing, this is where we're gonna hang out. I think Texas is one of the best states, except Tennessee, I would say. Texas and
Tennessee's up there,
Tennessee,
yeah.
are some of the best states. But the East Coast has some great places. I know you guys mentioned Connecticut and Massachusetts, and that's where yeah, Yale is in New Haven, I think, Connecticut.
Yeah.
But yeah, East Coast is there, but remember it gets cold. But we'll talk more about those kinds of issues later on. I think the first step is getting that perfect score or close to a perfect score on the ACT, SAT, making sure you guys can nail down your vision for life. You want to be computer and electrical engineers. Let's help you. Let's help you be the best kind of computer and electrical engineers. I know that Dr. Jerry, someday, hopefully your company is big and can give insight into the young engineers so that they can, aspire to work in some AI startups like yours. But I think that I want to see how I can be a resource in training those people that are then able to work in fields that you guys work in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, so no, thank you so much for your time, though. I think I've talked too long, but I'll let the boys jump. Boys, you're welcome to ask your last question, or we can call it a day, and then I'll follow up with you on an email after this. Well, David and Nathaniel, thanks for joining us. And Joseph is, as I said, one of our tutors. He's based in Nigeria. He's the one who helped me build my website, by the way. So he does a lot of website work and graphic design. And so that kind of fun stuff. He's very creative. That is a skill that I just don't have time to invest in my life right now. So I look for people that can imagine and create. I have other things I'm growing in. So, but no, thank you so much, Dr. Jerry. And I will be in touch. I'll probably give you a call here this afternoon. So,
okay.
Yes. Well, take care. God bless.
All right, you too.
We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.